And now for our feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hunter Renfrow. He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Citadel baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Wednesday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Causes not just cases, MotleyRice.com. Driven by Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at StokesVW.com. Head to JBandGoldwaterShow.com for more about us. A couple of hours away from being over, but those couple of hours will be long because JC Shurburtt joins us today. It was a wonderful night of college basketball, and the 2022 class, it was pretty lonely with just one member. The Hall of Fame class in Major League Baseball was announced last night, which is a story in itself. The fact that David Ortiz was the only player selected, or former player, but the other side of that coin, the other story, is who wasn't selected to the Hall of Fame and what their futures look like if they hope to get in one day. And things of that nature. So we're certainly going to talk about all that. There's some other college football news out there to get into today on this hump day. It is a beautiful day here in the Low Country. Wherever you are, I hope it's as pretty there. And we hope that you'll stick around to hang out with us next couple of hours. By the way, I last week I was making fun of it, and now Beamer's doing it, so I have to make fun of him as well. You got to lump them all into the same category here. You know, these helicopters and these tanks and these trains and these rocket ships and all this stuff that college football coaches are taking to go see recruits. Yep, Beamer's in a chopper today. So it's a trend that's going to continue. It looks like. I don't know where they're coming up with this stuff. I don't know if they're renting them or if they have donors that own them or what. But Shane is traveling around the state today in a helicopter. So if you hear one buzz over your head at some point in time, wherever you may be, look up. It might be the head football coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks. With all that being said, make sure you follow us on social media at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB and at Darren Goldwater. And the Share Healthcare chat lines are yours for the taking. Adam and Craig own them thus far. What's up, man?
I mean, if you're just jumping around the state, you're not going that far, and you can get your hands on a helicopter, do it, man. It's going to get you around a lot faster.
Have you ever been in one?
Yeah, I've been in a
really?
couple.
I've never been in one. What's it like?
So I love flying, but a helicopter is a very different experience than just being in a plane. To be fully honest, I was scared when we first did it. Was it my first? Yeah, my first one was on our honeymoon. We were out in Maui, and we took a little helicopter tour of the islands. So it's awesome, right? But there's not a lot that's separating you from like the outside and complete death. But for the most part, they're safe, except for some of the shady companies that operate some of those tours. But we weren't on one of the shady companies. It's you feel like you're going faster than when you're in a plane because there's more frame of reference. You know, you're a little bit lower, so you're kind of like zipping by the trees. So there's more of a thrill portion of it. I'm sure that goes away as you ride them more and more, but it's cool, man. I mean, you plop down wherever you want to plop down, and then you up and away when you're ready to go. It's nice and comfortable. They're all modern, just like private jets. So it's a good way to go if you can get your hands on one.
Yeah, I've never been on one. I'm devastatingly scared of heights. I hate airplanes unless I'm drinking. Like I think you said didn't you and Mike you have the conversation? Y'all both been skydiving?
Oh yeah, I've been skydiving and bungee jumping many times.
No. Like when I ride over the Ravenel Bridge, I don't even like to look out into Charleston Harbor. I'm just like, let's just get over this thing and move on with our lives on land. Yeah, I had somebody ask me one time, have you ever been offshore fishing? And I said, well, yeah, of course. I grew up in the Low Country. And they said, well, what are you not more scared of being out in the middle of the ocean than you are of being in a plane? I said, no. What do you mean? That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, think about the middle of the ocean. And I said, yeah, hey, dude, I can swim. I can't fly. So if something bad happens out there, I have a fighting chance because I know how to swim and I know how to tread water and I'm really, really good at it. But I have no idea how to fly. So like myself.
It's you've heard it before. Everyone's heard it a million times, right? It's safer to fly than it is to actually drive. Yeah. And I kind of I get what your buddy was saying. I mean, you're stuck in the middle of the ocean. If something happens, that's a problem. Right? That's a big, big problem if you're stuck out in the middle of the ocean. If you're in the air and something happens, that tends to be problematic as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to be in either spot if there's a really big problem.
Yeah. Either way, it is. Well, hopefully, Coach Beamer has a nice cruise around the state. I do think it would be neat though to be in a helicopter because you're not 30,000 feet in the air like an airplane. You're only a few hundred yards up there, and you're close. You can see everything. It'd probably be neat to check it out from that type of view.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like when you're in a plane. Unless there's some clouds, like as you're taking off or landing, you have frame of reference points with the trees and the houses and some clouds. Once you're flying, there's really no sense of speed. In a helicopter, there's a sense of speed. There's enough stuff around you. Like, oh man, look at that.
Now, I will say, I see Adam's comment that totally thought I was the only one when I'm on the Ravenel. I have laser focus forward and I do not look to either side. I will say this. I grew up here. So I learned to drive on the old Grace Pyramid bridges. Okay. And I had to, one of my jobs when I was younger, when I was 13, when I was 18, I mean, even though I played baseball all summer, I still worked for a peach company owned by the Schuler family, which they're originally from the Utahville area. So we would go up there 3 days a week. We'd work the markets down here in Mount Pleasant and Charleston. The Mount Pleasant market, if anybody's been to it, looked nothing like that. We had dirt and grass. You had to bring your own tent. You didn't have pavement and all this glitzy fans. Are you kidding me? Anyways, but the downtown market, we used to have to drive an old rickety U-Haul that we towed behind the truck. It was it was a single axle, 2-wheel old U-Haul that you stacked boards in it. You peaches on the bottom, you stack, and then you keep going all the way to the top, and you did it all the way to fill the U-Haul. So that would weigh it down and provide you, it would help you out. And you had to keep that between the lanes going across the old Cooper River Bridge, if you will. But coming home on the other side, when you only had, you didn't have any peaches back there. You had sold them all. And that thing would go back. And that's how I learned to drive. So if you could do that, if you could drive on those bridges, you can literally drive anywhere. I mean, that was, Darren, you remember, I mean, you were here before they were blown up. You didn't have 6 inches on either side of your tire. So if you swerved right or left, you either went into a car or you went into the side of the bridge.
I still refer to those bridges as the bridges of death. That's what I called them when I moved here in 2002. And that's what I called them until they were, blown up. And I still consider them. That's what I felt every time driving over. And if you're scared of heights, that thing's terrifying. It wobbled. You could feel the thing wobbling. I mean, if anything's that, I would less prefer to be on that bridge as it wobbled, which we were many times driving, than I would be in the middle of an ocean on a boat or even in a plane. That was terrifying. Thank God they blew that thing up before I fell off of it.
Yeah, it was tough, man. But I mean, like my family, they grew up here, and back then, there was only one lane both ways because that was the only bridge. But it was nothing. I mean, cars didn't go really fast. There wasn't a bunch of traffic, or anything like that. I see Dylan Dylan has chimed in. Jumping out of a helicopter is way better and easier than a plane. I did it many times in the Army. Well, first and foremost, thank you for your service. That's really neat. That's a great comment. I'm assuming he was a paratrooper, I guess. Dylan, give us some background on you, because I would, I'd just like to know, to be honest with you. I don't think Shane Beamer is going to be,
but
out
if
of a
he did,
chopper today.
I mean, if he comes like zip lining down one, that'd be a baller move.
He's probably the type of guy who would do it. I don't know. He didn't like mayonnaise on his head, and now we expect him to jump out of a helicopter.
I'd rather jump out of a helicopter than have mayonnaise poured on my head. No question.
Oh man, we could do this all day. And there's going to be a day coming up probably in June where we will. So everybody stick around. 12:11 on a Wednesday afternoon. The Share Healthcare chat lines are there for your comments. Anybody have any comments on last night in college basketball? How about the Clemson Tigers almost pulling off a stunner against 9th-ranked Duke, but they didn't? Here is the startling stat, maybe of the year. The Tigers shot one free throw, and they lost by 2 points. There was a total of 23 fouls called in the game. Give me the ACC officiating crew into the SEC. Now, I do like to see some free throws here and there, not 100 of them, but one free throw, Darren. And here's the thing. It's not like Duke shot 30. They shot 13, and there was only 14 total free throws attempted in the ball game, and both of them were lighting it up from downtown. Duke 10 of 20, Clemson 11 of 26. It was an incredible basketball game. Tigers had a shot, but they just couldn't get it done at the end.
So last night was my first losing night in a while, and it was my worst night in a while. I went 3-6, and I didn't take this game, which I said on the show yesterday. I thought Clemson had a shot to keep the thing close, and I didn't take Missouri when I said yesterday that watch out, that thing's going to be close too. My logic in the Clemson thing was offensively, they have been a consistent team. They can shoot. I was going to go down a different road really, really well. The question was, how would they play defensively and how would they match up on the inside? And that was the key to the game. They played very well. The tempo was in their liking. They controlled that aspect.
They did.
And it didn't jump out at me during the game that there were some egregious calls that were missed. Looking at the numbers afterwards and how much around the rim that game was actually played, it's kind of eye-opening. But watching it, it didn't feel like there were a ton of even really many at all that jump out like, oh man, they totally missed that. It was a good free-flowing but slower tempo game.
I agree. I thought it was a good basketball game. I mean, those are the type of games that most of us really like to watch. And I didn't see play for play in it, but I was watching as much as I could. It was a good game. Matter of fact, for Clemson, they moved up in the net rankings last night with that loss. They went from 76 to 73. So, the Tigers certainly still on the outside looking in. They do not have a quad one win this year. They're not considered in the tournament at this point in time. Now, that would have certainly changed their outlook, but had to give them some confidence. They've got Florida State coming up next. We all know what the Noles have been doing of late on the basketball court. Remember, South Carolina beat Florida State earlier this year in beautiful Rock Thrill. And so Clemson's going to have a chance to get them at Little John, and then they got to go to Georgia Tech. Then they got North Carolina, and then Notre Dame. I mean, there are chances there for Clemson to kind of get going. Even in the loss last night, Darren, I think that Coach Brownell can probably use that for his team to continue to motivate them moving forward in a late season push to start knocking on the door of the dance.
No doubt. I mean, they're coming off one of their better performances of the year, and then you follow it up with that thing at Duke where you had every chance to win. Yeah, it's a net positive, right? You want to. I'm not a big fan of losses that still boost the confidence, moral, whatever. But it's a net positive for a team that, in one respect, looking for some confidence. That's a net positive for them there. They went and they played toe-to-toe with Duke, maybe the best team in the ACC, maybe the second or third, right around the top of the ACC. A lot of folks think Florida State's the best team in the ACC, and 2 games to watch tonight would be Florida State on the road and Miami on the road.
Yeah.
They're 5.5-point underdogs at Virginia Tech,
yeah,
which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Miami on the ACC network. You mentioned Florida State at Georgia Tech. They're 5.5 point dogs at McCamish Pavilion. So, yeah, I mean, be interesting to see what Florida State looks like. To your point, with Clemson on deck as well. I see McKenzie there. Yeah, I mean, there were some no calls in there that I would consider pretty bad. We're seeing it in every game this year, and I also agree with McKenzie. It's to be expected at Duke. That's pretty normal up there. I don't know why.
That was Brownell's response when the question was asked. Basically, tossed his glasses on the table and was like, "Well, it was something along the lines of that's to be expected here, or it's happened here before, or something towing the line of I might get fined, but might not."
Yeah, and he's not the only coach to have wanted to say that or to have said that. So I don't disagree with Brad Brownell at all with that assessment of the game. But look, it was not devastating. It would have been huge for Clemson. It would have been huge, but it wasn't devastating. They did play really well, and they can hopefully translate that moving forward. It was a good night. I don't want to spend a ton of time on basketball. We will come back to it in just a little while because I certainly want to get into the Hall of Fame stuff before we tap JC Shurburtt into our program today. But elsewhere, I did see somebody just a little bit ago mention the Texas Tech game. Who was that? I don't know who it was, but great game there. The Kansas-Texas Tech game was bananas from Adam. Yeah, that was a wonderful game. The UCLA game, pulling away from Arizona and beating them by 16, I thought that would be a better game, but then it was a late tip. I think 11 o'clock our time, Darren, somewhere like that. And then the SEC was wild last night. The SEC was Auburn, the top-ranked team in the country. Number one has been a bugaboo this year, and it almost happened. They won by one at Missouri, who only had 8 wins on the year. They were 8-10 coming in. Tigers barely prevail. They survived a scare, if you want to call it that. Kentucky had to survive against Mississippi State at Rupp in overtime, 82-74, the final score there. And then how about Alabama and Georgia? The Tide thumped in Athens, 82-76. We've been talking for the last 2 weeks about how bad Georgia is, and they beat Alabama last night. It almost seemed like Alabama was asleep at the wheel, Aaron. Like they were, this is Georgia. We're going to walk in and we're going to be fine. And Georgia, after giving up that 24-0 run on Saturday when the Gamecocks pulled away, they showed up. They were fired up. They were ready to go, and they got the first win of the year in the league.
One of the games I didn't pay much attention to at all, really, but it's a score. It's a score that jumped out for sure. That's a really bad loss for Nate Oates and Alabama. It's terrible. I agree. Part of that is probably them just going in and sleepwalking and not even taking the game seriously, but I didn't watch. I don't know. But if it was weird last night, then the question is how weird is it going to be tonight? Because there's another interesting one or two.
Maybe the best year of college basketball I've seen in a while. It's been really, really neat to watch. College of Charleston beat William and Mary last night as well, 74-73. It's the Cougars' 10th win of the year. They're second in the CAA. And I will add that William and Mary has had an awful season. They're 4-16. But 3 of those 4 wins have come in the CAA, which has just struggled. It struggled this year. The College Charleston's probably looking over at the SoCon going, why did we leave again for this league? And now, SoCon's pretty good.
Yeah, and I don't understand. The CAA is expanding, right? And they're taking some schools from the Big South, and they're adding Monmouth, and they're adding Stony Brook. And I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. It doesn't seem like you're making yourself stronger. If anything, you're making yourself weaker, even though you can separate into a North and South division. I don't like the future prospects of the CAA.
No, I don't. I do remember when Stony Brook got into the College World Series not too long ago, which was amazing. Yeah. But no. It's a struggling league. The College of Charleston under Pat Kelsey in the future will have every opportunity to step up and take strong control of the CAA. They should literally be looking at multiple NCAA appearances in the future, Darren, because the league, College of Charleston, I'm just going to say it's just better than the CAA, and they need to play like it. They won last night. It's been a struggle this year in the first year under Pat Kelsey. which some of that was probably to be expected as he revamped things down there. But they've got a bright future with that guy in that league. It's very winnable.
I think they're one of the youngest teams in the country overall. I mean, they're playing a ton.
Well, they brought like 11 new players in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, he's got to get it going. Yep. Who knows what happens down the stretch? Yeah. If they get hot,
the going is there for them. The going is right in front of them. And again, keep in mind, James Madison, if they win the tournament, they're not going to the NCAA tournament from the CAA because they're not allowed. So we still have things to figure out here in the CAA.
Great point. 12:20 on a Wednesday afternoon, the JB and Goldwater show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. The Share Healthcare chat lines are open. Hey, everybody. Good to see all of you popping in. David Ortiz is also in to the Hall of Fame. 77.9% of the vote went his way, 307 votes in total. And he, as you all probably know by now, is the only one who will be inducted this year on July the 24th in Cooperstown, New York. Just shy were the two that the microscope was most on, Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens. Barry got to 66% and Roger Clemens to 65%. It was their final year on the ballot. Kurt Schilling, he dropped significantly from last year to 231 overall votes, 58.6%. It was also his final year on the ballot. Scott Rowland, Darren, with 249 votes, 63%. I got a good feeling about Scott Rowland. And then probably the next 2 or 3 years, Scott Rowland is going to be inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. And I think he deserves to be. He's one of the best third base of his generation. He could swing it. He's a gold. I don't even know how many gold gloves he won. A ton. Matter of fact, when he came up, there was a lot of people, I remember it, even though I was a kid, who were beginning to mention Scott Rowland as could he be the next best third baseman since Brooks Robinson. Nobody is on Brooks Robinson's level just yet. He was in an era where there was a guy named Chipper and guys like that out there, but he is one of the best. So he's inching his way up there. Todd Helton over 50% last night. One of the best pure hitters I've ever seen. I know that. And then there's old Andrew Jones, who did climb 8 points. He's got over 40%. I think he's this was his 5th year, right? So sure. I think it's 5. The thing is that you can't just, A-Rod, by the way, got 34%. You can't just project on that. Oh, okay, well, they'll go up X number because new players are added every year. And so the votes will always get distorted a little bit based on new names on the ballot. But there are some certainly to keep an eye on, in my opinion. I think Andrew is now that he's over 40%, he's over halfway there. So he's a guy to keep an eye on. And again, I believe that Scott Rowland and I think Todd Helton's going to have a great chance as well. Real quick, those that are going to fall off the ballot: Joe Nathan, Tim Hudson, Tim Lincecum, Ron Howard, Mark Teixeira, Justin Morneau, Jonathan Papelbon, who was fierce in his day. Yeah. Prince Fielder, AJ Pierzynski, and Carl Crawford and Jake Peavy. None of them will be able to move forward because they received less than 5%.
Careful here, Tim. We love you. We love you in our Share Healthcare.
Oh, Andrew. Yeah, Tim. I'm at Tim.
Award for JB if you missed it yesterday.
Yeah, you come on, man. You hit me in the face with a shovel. I would like to know why. I'd like to know why Andrew Jones does not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. If that's your opinion, which I totally respect. I disagree with it, but I respect. Why do you say that?
The back end of the career is what will keep it either out or will be the reason it takes him too long to get there. But the recency bias on Andrew Jones, what you remember most recently, that spins it. That hurts. I'm not saying he doesn't get in.
Talking about the final couple of years of the final, I think maybe 4 years or so. Yeah. Bounced around, had some injuries, just couldn't get it going anymore. Yeah, I agree. Had he retired before that with a home run total that was less, it would have helped him more. His career batting average would have been more than, well, it would definitely would have been in the 260s somewhere.
Maybe.
Right around 400s. Yeah. Yeah, and Adam, you're kind of making my case. So 10 Gold Gloves. It's the second most ever for a center fielder. I think we can all guess who has the most. It's a guy named Willie Mays. But Andrew Jones and Ken Griffey Jr. are second in line with 10 Gold Gloves, and he hit 430 some odd home runs. No, Tyler, what the hell's wrong with you? I would not skydive to get Andrew Jones in the Hall of Fame. I mean, I want him to be in the Hall of Fame, but I'm not going to risk my own life for that. No chance.
You got a parachute. You're good.
Yeah. No thanks. Bonds and Clemens. David Ortiz supportive of them after he got in. He said, I think they both deserve to be in. So, I respect David Ortiz's opinion. I have thought for a long time. We talked about this yesterday. I think that Barry Bonds is a Hall of Famer. I understand why he's not. I personally think he is. I saw a stat there, it's an amazing stat. Barry Bonds' on-base percentage, if you turned all 762 home runs into outs, would be 384. David Ortiz's career on-base percentage was 380.
You can make a case, a very strong case, that Barry Bonds is the greatest hitter that's ever lived. You can make that case.
Absolutely.
I said yesterday, you know how I feel. I think they should both be in. I think the bigger story from yesterday is, it's not a story, but the perception's changing. So once this gets to these era committees, like that Corey was talking about yesterday, and when peers are starting to vote and voice their opinions on all this, I think we're going to see all this stuff. I think we'll start to see the trend change. And really, it doesn't have to be this forever changing thing, because we're basically through what is termed the steroid era. So it's just evaluating the guys who played during that time frame, and then we can go back to whatever language you want to use to determine what should and shouldn't be a Hall of Famer. But I think we'll see the general attitude change, that because more and more public attitude is changing towards that. So I think it's only natural that we see that progression follow all the way through.
I'm with you. Well, look, we mentioned this yesterday, Darren, and that's you're spot on, because this is why I mentioned I think there needs to be more detail in the Hall of Fame itself to describe the era in which Hall of Famers played. I mean, the steroid era, Barry Bonds, I think where we look, I don't like the fact that he broke Hank Aaron's record and he was on the juice. Okay. I don't like that, but you don't have to like it for him to be a Hall of Famer. Now, that being said, there have long been strict guidelines as to why you should or shouldn't be in a Hall of Fame, what rules you can and can't break. And that's one of them. So I understand it, but I guess what I'm getting at is, as time, all right, we're going to look up in 40 years. All right. Mark my words. Okay. When you're 80, I want you to remember that I said this. We're going to look up in 40 years, and there's going to be a lot of dudes that are in the Hall of Fame with career 250 and 260 batting averages with 1,500, 2,000 strikeouts. And you're going to go, what? Why? I'm telling you, it's going to happen. Not even that long. I mean, it's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to be, this player is being inducted now, and he's got the most strikeouts of any to ever be in the Hall of Fame, because the game has changed. Everything has changed. The way you get paid, why you get paid to perform has changed in baseball. You get paid to hit home runs right now. All right. So if I'm a big league guy and they go, I really need you to hit 300 this year, and I go, well, that's probably going to mean I hit about 15 home runs. Well, what am I going to get paid on that? Well, you probably sign a deal, maybe 7 or 8 years for 40, 50 million. What if I hit 250 and hit 30 home runs? Yeah, probably looking at 7 or 8 years for 100 million. I'll hit 250. Give me the extra $50 million. The evidence is out there. All you got to do is go look at it. So as the game changes, there's going to be different numbers that we're not used to that are going to accompany players into the Hall of Fame. You're never going to see 500 win Cy Young in the Hall of Fame again. For that matter, you're more than likely never going to see 350 win Roger Clemens in there. If Roger ever gets in, he's probably going to be the last guy to get in who has over 350 wins, because the game evolves. So all that being said, the steroid era was a tough era for the sport. Baseball allowed it. They lost the fans after the 94 strike. They let it happen on their watch. They turned a blind eye to it. Then they corrected the problem. But we have to remember that Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens were not the only players that performed within that era. They just happened to be better than all the other players that were on the juice in that era.
Yeah, Yes, all of that. I've said from day one that every player in every era, and it is still true today and will be true tomorrow, everybody will do everything in their power to gain a competitive edge. If all you're doing is skirting a rule, if you're doing it like when McGuire started it, he wasn't really breaking any rule, right? It wasn't technically even illegal at that point, not in the game itself.
Right.
So anyone, go back in time. Players are taking greenies. I don't know. They thought it helped. Otherwise, they wouldn't be taking it. So it's just the evolution of all of that. It will continue to happen. Don't think guys aren't getting scientifically enhanced now, because they are, and chemically enhanced because they are, because science is that far ahead. I'm not saying they're cheating at all, but there are those who could look at them doing everything right for their bodies and the supplements that they're taking and say, look, well, they're taking it too far. That line is completely blurred and will forever be completely blurred. All these guys did was outperform everybody in their time.
Yeah. I mean, I personally, and I respect that, and I know we got to go, but I respect the hell out of people that don't think that guys like Rocket and Barry Bonds and guys like that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. I totally respect that opinion. It is a very right opinion because they did wrong things. I just happen to see it a little bit different. There was a time when I didn't think they should be in the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. And I changed my tune on that as I continued to think about it from a bigger picture. What structure did they play within? And they played within a structure that was allowing them to cheat. Mm-hmm. And they did it. And they were still better than everybody else. I will also yeah, exactly, Tim. How many players on the Juice that we don't know about? Oh.
Tons.
Hey, and let me give everybody a little secret here. And it's not really as prevalent anymore. It's just not. But there was a time when college baseball, yeah, it was all over the sport. All freaking over it.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. And they never got out of it.
Just as a radio guy, just around it, it was so out there that, I mean, everyone knew. You knew what was happening.
Dude, there was a time where it was normal. I mean, I've seen it. I've been around it. I mean, the only reason I never did anything like that is, my father died of a heart attack when he was 42 years old. I don't want to take that risk of putting that type of, pressure on my body. I didn't think and literally that was my decision, but I've seen it. I'll just admit that I've seen it. I've been there. I've watched it. I'm like, man, that's just not for me. But that's an era in which we were in. So, all right. As we move on, I think it was Adam. Adam, you know how much we love you. God, but some of you guys, I kind of disagree with you today. Bonds won 8 Gold Gloves. I don't know how he was a liability when he was an 8-time Gold Glove winner. Now, when he got older, he got a little bulky. He wasn't moving around up there real well.
And he had a good arm. The play everyone remembers, the Sid Bream play, that was not an example of his good arm, but he had a good arm too. He was a fabulous left fielder.
Dude, you don't win 8 Gold Gloves because you're not good up there. You might clip 1 or 2 here and there by being average, but not 8. No, it's tough to get one. So, all right, got to run. JC's probably all pissed off waiting on us, but he'll be here in just a couple of minutes. Hang tight, the JB and Goldwater show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. We'll be right back.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need the perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity financed a new loan, subject to lender approval.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work. and 2 others you probably don't think much about. Stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. Sharehealthcare.com.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, Park West.
Motley Rice LLC is a law firm with international reach, but it hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for people harmed by products including asbestos and talc exposure, medical drugs and devices, and also catastrophic injuries and auto recalls, including dangerous Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. Visit motleyrice.com. Thank you, Motley Rice, for supporting the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
Your online radio. The new online radio that makes you happy.
I got honey bees on my screen door. I got a little buzz in my head. So cause we come from a long line of sinners like me.
And you were listening to the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
Don't cry for me when I'm gone. Put a quarter in your leading me back home.
Very Eric Churchish of you today to be wearing an American beanie. My friend JC Shurburtt, owner of the BigSpur.com. I do see Jamie has brought up some neat points on the baseball stuff. I think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame too. He's the greatest hitter to ever play the game. And Fred McGriff. The interesting thing, I'm a big believer in that. Here's, I think, what has kept Fred McGriff out of the Hall of Fame. Honestly, okay, he never had a 40 home run season. He was one of the most consistent hitters of his era. He hit 493 home runs in his career. And that is, I think, the main reason why, Darren. 7 more home runs. Can you believe that? If he would get to 500 with a career 284 batting average like he had, I think he had, 5 silver sluggers or 3 silver sluggers and 5 all-stars or something like that. I think Fred McGriff would be in the Hall of Fame. But he didn't have, one big popping number, and he never really got over 40% of the Hall of Fame vote. But I agree. I think he's one of the best, definitely one of the best hitters I've ever seen. But he's not in either.
Yeah, with that helicopter finish sometimes. I wonder if the Amansky thing hurt him. Just thinking out loud. I don't know. Maybe people thought it was a bit of a gimmick.
I think we should remake the Tom Amansky videos for ourselves to promote ourselves. What do you think, JC? Are you a big Tom Amansky video guy? Do you remember those?
No. I remember Dorfel Golf. Is that the same thing?
No.
I don't what's Dorfel Golf?
You don't remember Dorfel Golf? It's a Tim Conway, the dude from the I probably just really changed the subject on you guys, but no, I don't remember Tom Amansky. I'm sorry.
If you Google it, JC, or YouTube it, you'll see it. Fred McGriff with the old top hat, and pointing in the
chucking a
camera.
ball into a trash can behind the plate, working on the outfield.
Dude, they played that commercial forever. I mean, and that's why, because so many
the drills. Okay, I know what you mean now. I didn't, the name Tom Amansky didn't show up for me a register, but I know exactly what you're talking about. I had one from George Brett too when I was a kid, and they played that, the Creedence Clearwater song.
Yeah,
put me in, coach. But it was like, it wasn't Creedence; it was some, garage band or something, like a dad band, like a dude in his 40s with his buddies. That play beach music on the weekends or whatever, even though they live in Wisconsin, singing it. And it was like, put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. And George Brett's running around. And I even think he had a can of beer in one of them. I mean, it was just, back then nobody cared.
No,
so.
Nobody cared. Nobody cared at all.
And then Joe Morrison lost to Georgia, lit up a Marlboro Red and walked across the field. Like, well, but anyway. But yeah, that's the Fred McGriff. And I remember McGriff was all over them. So yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, those were some good days. That song reminds me when I was a kid, when I used to bat boy for Ralph Cibiterri's College of Charleston Cougars at the old Remley's Point. If Tony Schufo is watching or listening to this, he'll remember that song played every damn day. And finally, they built a press box, so when it rained, the scoreboard wouldn't go out. It was good old days. All right, JC, got you in a little late today, but here's the good news. You own us on Wednesdays. You can pretty much do whatever the hell you want. You can stay around as long as you want to.
Yeah, I will tell you, I've got a hard 1:30 your time deadline. I've got to go take some groceries to Nat's parents. It's like -8 out here today. Yeah, -8, seriously. I'm dead serious. Check it out. I mean, it's unbelievable. And they're a little older, and so I got to go get some eggs and rice. Or actually, I had DoorDash bring it to me at our house, and I got to take it about 15 minutes away and then go do carpool. So I'm having a lot of domestic chores today around here, guys.
Yeah. You're domesticated these days.
Got a load of laundry in.
You don't happen to own a chopper, do you?
No, but I know who does. It was kind of funny.
Whose is it? Whose helicopter is that?
I have no idea. It's a question everybody's asking me. I'm assuming it was either rented or, I mean, the university doesn't buy. Most universities don't buy helicopters, but I'm assuming it was rented or borrowed or donated or something. But Tony Morrell said earlier Spurrier did that. Well, I don't remember Spurrier getting in the chopper, or at least it not being a big deal like the Lane Kiffins and Nick Sabans and Kirby Smarts of the world, where it becomes a big deal. Kiffin did it when he was at Tennessee, just because you can't get around in Atlanta, school to school on a Friday night. I mean, that's just asking for it in a car. So, I thought it was smart then. But yeah, Shane Beamer helicopter today, going to Woodland, Dillon High School, and Sumter High School. So kind of a triangle right there in the old chopper to get some recruiting in. I think that's always kind of cool. I think the kids like it and all that. And I think if you're South Carolina, this fan base is always wondering, why don't we do things like that? A lot of people don't think South Carolina has any money. So, I mean, I guess, what are they saying at Florida now? The stupidest thing ever. Scared money don't make money. What? Bragging about how much they're spending on their staff or whatever. I'm like, that's what Billy Napier. I'm like, dude, you better win if you're going to say stuff like that.
What?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
I bet Spurrier's head wants. I bet his head's going to fall off. Game changer coordinator.
Yeah, so it's kind of ridiculous. But anyway, so so Shane Beamer's going to do that, and so I was in a hurry because we got some access to the video, and we're uploading it to the Big Spur YouTube page. Of course, it's everywhere now on all the social media channels and stuff. But so I'm trying to put it up, and the only thing I could think to call it was the cock chopper. And so the Lorena Bobbitt jokes are coming in like 80 miles an hour. People are like, ow, can we call it something else? I'm like, yeah. And then Hale texts me and says, you think we should call it something else? And I'm like, I just came up with that off the top of my head.
There's another joke right there.
I'm not having a good day, guys. Not having a good day off the top of my head. I'm like, oh.
Dude, somebody. I know we're due. Darren, I guess signing day is coming soon, so a little bit shortly after that, we'll probably have Shane back on the program, and that'll be the first question I ask him. What are we calling this thing? The cock copter? Or would you say cock copter?
I said cock chopper.
Cock chopper.
Like helicopter's a chopper. It's getting a chopper. Yeah. A chopper can also be a motorcycle, as we all found out while watching Pulp Fiction in the 1990s. But it's a chopper, and so cock chopper. And I just forgot that means a whole lot of different other stuff. And then I made the comment that I just off the top of my head, and I just set myself up for more ridicule on that one. But we changed it. I think there's a little graphic on the video that calls it the cock chopper, but I don't think that's probably not a good thing. I mean, because the next thing you call it that, and you're sitting there, and somebody's got a Polish sausage out, and they're dicing it up to make chicken bog or something, and you start thinking, there's lots of imagery there that with the mascot and the word chop. So we'll save chopper for the Braves and call it cock copter. Cock copter's a little hard to say.
So you're helicopter. I like that.
That's a good one. Helicopter. Good job.
So when you say cock chopper, you think of helicopters and food?
I just thought of the helicopter. I just thought chopper. That's a good, cool name, cock chopper. And then I was like, I started thinking about it. I was like, wait a minute. I was a little tired. I didn't get much sleep last night, so I was like,
yeah, I saw. The kids woke me up around 5:30 this morning, so I was just kind of laying in bed. I was like, let me see what's going on in the wide world of the Big Spur, and you were up on there just yapping away. That's about 4 o'clock your time. What the hell's wrong with you?
Called insomnia, man. It's some days I just get up and want to seize the day, and when it's negative 13 outside, you kind of just want to get up and get life over with.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you feel better now after calling something publicly a cock chopper.
Get to the bar quickly. As the days like today, I'm like, I got.
That's what you need to do. Go down to your little Cheers bar. Any of you boys see the cock chopper up in the air today?
Yeah, cock chopper. What's that? A cock chopper.
JC, have you been up a while, pal? How long you been sitting here?
Making chicken salad or Polish sausage.
y'all ought to pull up the cock chopper on your foot. No, we're not interested in porn today, pal.
Cock chopper. It's like a superhero. Cock chopper.
It'd be terrible porn because I don't want to see any.
Oh my god,
the cock chopper.
So Lorena Bobbitt. Meanwhile, at the Bobbitt household, cock chopper shows up. Hello.
It just makes you wonder what's next. Is somebody going to take off in a rocket? Is somebody going to the cock rocket? Are they going to get?
You remember the fairgrounds, state fairgrounds? They had the big rocket.
The old rocket, yeah.
Yeah, we called it the cock rocket when I was at Carolina.
Oh, no, I didn't have a name for it.
The cock rocket. I think we did.
Well, the tank
we definitely should have.
Yeah. The tank on Shop Road, he was called that the cock tank.
That brings back bad memories for everybody that loves recruiting and watch Auburn play the last 2 years. Or last year.
Well, that's what do we do next? I mean, you recruit a guy who's a big offensive lineman. Do you show up in a blimp? I mean, what happens here? I don't know. This is
who's the
loony?
There's a kid they're recruiting, Zechariah Owens. His nickname's Flapjack.
So what do? You show up
Flapjacks. And I said, well, according to my expert recruiting analysis, any offensive lineman with the nickname Flapjacks is getting an offer from me.
Okay.
Especially if he's 6'7", 340 and moves like a deer like that kid does. Definitely. But anybody named Flapjacks. Rule of thumb, if an offensive lineman is a nickname Flapjacks, or if his last name ends in an itch, vitch, or ski, take him.
Yeah.
Darren is going to talk about Western PA.
Yes.
Ohio, country. The itches, the bitches, and the skis. Those guys can play offensive line. Popinski,
Milanovic,
Big old
country strong dudes.
Wow.
Yeah, it had like the Tony Mandritz Guns N' Roses tattoos all over and stuff like that. But yeah, Flapjack or Itch Vitcherski. Offensive line recruiting 101, folks, right here on JB.
That is fantastic. It's amazing how far you have. You helped build this recruiting industry. Obviously, you know what you're doing. Hey, you know what? Speaking of all of that, you mentioned Tank Bigsby. He's about the only one left. Now Mason's off to Oklahoma State. What the hell has happened over there? Bobo's an offensive off-field analyst at Georgia. Mason's taken off for the Big 12, which is deteriorating. What's going on?
Well, okay, so I talked about this not on Tuscaloosa radio this morning, but on JC and Morgan. We talked about it.
You would have been the gold mine for doing this in T-Town.
Well, yeah, they asked me a lot of different questions. So I broke down the SEC West today, and I've identified a team to pick last in that division, and I rarely do. But I think Ole Miss finishes last, just for the record, next year.
Wow.
Yeah, they lose like everybody. And I know they have that Evans kid, the running back from the portal, but anyway, that's beside the point. All right, so we were talking about odds, and my answer to that, guys, is it's Auburn. Okay. And if you look, Auburn's a very fascinating school for me because I know a bunch of Auburn people. I kind of watch them operate because they really don't care. Nobody's gonna hire Bruce Pearl. We will. We suck at basketball anyway. What are we gonna lose? We want to fire a guy after an 8-5 season. Great, let's do it. $39 million buyout. Sure, I'll write a check. And so Auburn kind of has this way of operating. And if you notice when they hired Chizik, but then Chizik came with a list of assistant coaches that he needed to hire. The Trooper Taylors of the world, Ted Roof, Gus Malzahn, I think Rodney Garner or Tracy Rocker, all these SEC type assistants. And that's fine because Chiz was at Iowa State or whatever. And so he was kind of given a list and he hired him. So then they fire him and they hire Malzahn back. Well, here's your list. Ellis Johnson. I think that's when Rodney Garner did come back. You need to hire this guy. You need to hire that guy. And so he had a list, and it worked out for both of those guys early on. So Brian Harsin, they basically did the same thing because I was getting calls about, what are you hearing about Derek Mason? What are you hearing about Mike Bobo? Way before, like a week before Harsin was even hired. And I said, well, who's going to get the job? Probably they're like, and what I was told, somebody real close to Auburn, probably Kevin Steele, but it could be a wild card. But either way, Auburn wants to talk to these two guys. So in other words, this was not something that Brian Harsin came up with. He's on my off-the-record conversations during that point in time. And at the time, I didn't really think Bobo would leave South Carolina. But they made sure that they made it worth his while or whatever, and then quickly disposed of him. But, that's how Auburn tends to operate. They'll go hire, I don't want to say a patsy, but look, man, Gene Chizik, 5-19 at Iowa State, crawl on his belly through glass to get Auburn. Malzahn, 4 years away from high school coaching at Arkansas State in his first year, crawls on his belly through glass to get Auburn. Harsin, kind of his own guy, but I guess to take it, hey, it's Auburn, we'll take it, whatever. And this time it blew up in their face. And the reason is like, nobody knows this. I know this. Mike Bobo was trying to call Brian Harsin's offense last year. Everybody wants to know what that terrible play call was at Carolina on 4th and 1 that could let the Gamecocks back in the game and win it. That was a Mountain West blue turf play call. That wasn't the OC. And so anytime something like that happens, it's a struggle. Now with Derek Mason, I think it's because of COVID and the vaccine issue, because Harsin was, I guess he's anti-vaccine, something like that. Maybe he's gotten it by now, maybe he hadn't. But then Derek Mason, who was vaccinated, got COVID and kind of put a statement out. And I thought at that point, this may not last very long marriage-wise, where he just endorsed vaccinations and said he didn't understand why anybody didn't get them, blah, blah, blah. That's a political issue I don't want to get into, but I think they clashed on a lot of levels, okay? And then Harsin fires the receivers coach he was told to hire midseason. He gets rid of Bobo. I don't know how Will Friend's still surviving over there, but he is. And he's bringing in his own guys. Now, I think the worry with the powers that be at Auburn, when the reason they dictate this is because of recruiting. And quite frankly, I'd worry about Harsin's recruiting too. But if you've hired him and you got to pay him this money and his job ultimately is to win games and not be, talked about in February or December, you kind of got to let him go with his own guys, right? And so that's what I think happened. And I thought it was awfully funny too, because the deal at Oklahoma State was not done with Derek Mason. And I guess Harsin found out about it and just said, all right, you're not coming back regardless. And so now you got Derek Mason and another guy that's interesting that takes some crap, Mike Gundy. So, do
you think Bobo, did he just want to go back to Georgia? Did he have any other offers to be an OC? Do you know?
Well, think about it like this, guys. Like all those assistant coaching deals have offsets in them. So in other words, he had a 3-year, people were like, well, it was only $100,000 extra for him to go to Auburn a year. And they're not looking at the fact assistant coaches won't guarantee deals because if you fire them, they get their money. Okay.
Right.
And so it wasn't 1.2 versus 1.3. It was 3.9 versus 2.4 guaranteed. Okay. That's almost, 50% higher. So that's why he went with the money and all that. And he felt like the quarterback situation was pretty good there or whatever. And so with these offsets, in the contract, that in other words, he goes and let's say Billy Napier wanted to hire him at Florida with his zillion dollar staff because, scared money makes no money. And he made $1 million there and had a 3-year guarantee. Well, then he doesn't get but $900,000, right, from Auburn. And I'm not saying he wouldn't have done that, but then you're also, when you're a coordinator, you're putting yourself in another precarious situation. I don't mind telling you, I talked to Mike Bobo, before the season or during the season, just asking him how he and his family were doing and asking him how his son, who's an offensive line recruit, was doing. And we were talking about the Southern Cal job coming open. So it was during the season. And I was like, Andy, I get a chance to go call plays out there. There's worst opportunities, And he's like, I'm not moving again, man. He's like, I've moved too much, moved across the country to Fort Collins and to Columbia, down to Auburn. He's like, I don't want to move anymore. And so my guess is going back to Athens, even if his family remained in Auburn for a little while or wherever they're living, is easier to do than maybe going to someplace else. And then I think you get your money at that point, but you're also stable, because nobody's going and firing the analyst. Kirby Smart's not going to go in there and get really mad at Todd Monken and fire Mike Bobo, and he's there amongst friends, Muschamp, Kirby, and Mike Bobo. It's kind of the three amigos from the old Ray Goff, early Jim Donnan days down at Georgia. So, and they just won a national title. And with your Kirby, you're kind of sitting there thinking, look, Bobo's system is a lot like what we do with Monken. It fits what I like. There's not a lot of guys that are better at doing the play calling. And, so if you think about it, kind of like Nick Saban, well, a lot of times guys leave and he's got an analyst sitting there and he just promotes them. And Kirby did the same thing with Muschamp this year. So that's what's going on there. And I think it's two different situations. I think the situation with Harsin and Bobo was untenable just because you don't have like two veteran play callers collaborating if they're not really, really in sync, And I had some questions as to whether or not that was going to work and who had control and all that. So that's one thing. The Mason thing, I think he was just ready not to work for Brian Harsin anymore, quite frankly. I don't think it had anything to do with Auburn or the school or his players. I think it had everything to do with Brian Harsin. I don't think Brian Harsin cared. I think he's, wanting his own deal. And I think that let that be a lesson for the Auburn folks that want to hire people's staffs for them. It's not always as it seems on paper, especially when you hire somebody from out of region. That's, I firmly believe, as much as people griped and complain. All right, so everybody griped and complained about Shane Beamer's staff last year. And everybody's like, oh, God, Brian Harsin, how will we ever beat Auburn again? We are dead in the water because Derek Mason and Mike Bobo and Will Friend are going to the Plains. Well, not only did South Carolina win the game this year, I think Beamer's staff and the smoothness, the OC situation notwithstanding, I said I'm not going to comment on that, but I think Beamer's staff is rolling right along. They're recruiting pretty well. They're recruiting some guys Auburn traditionally does. And so I think that if you're some of my friends down there on the Plains, you really kind of need to start thinking, especially if you're a decider down there, and this will never happen because they are who they are. But if you're a decider, you need to maybe next time you get a new coach, which may be next year, you need to let him pick his coaches because it's not always about names. Largely assistant coaches are about fit, as we all know.
It's 101 on a Wednesday afternoon. Look, Darren, you just want to roll through the break?
Yeah, there you go. Break when he's got to go.
It's JC has to run at 1:30. So good news for everybody here. We're not going to take a break. So if you don't like us, that's bad news. But if you do, then you're in luck, pal. The town is back that way. I just retweeted, by the way, a video, JC, just because of our conversation of Coach Beamer landing on the practice fields at Dillon High School, a place that always puts out a ton of talent coming in that helicopter. All right, so this is the final week of recruiting for Coach Beamer and his staff as it pertains to this class. There are still a couple of open spots, JC, but I recall, I think I saw you yesterday or the day before crystal ball one of the remaining prospects, the Lightsey kid, maybe to Georgia. So if that comes to fruition, then he won't be in the class for South Carolina. So what would happen to those two spots?
Okay, so there's still a receiver out there. I keep talking about him and referring to it. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. I think it still may because there's some things that have gotten postponed. And a long story short, I think there's still one receiver out there that if he got in the portal, South Carolina would be highly, highly interested in. There's also Raekwon O'Neal, the offensive tackle from Rutgers, who they're kind of, sniffing, kicking the tires on. All Big Ten guy at Rutgers, honorable mention 2 years from Conway. And then with Lightsey, the word that we got from Steve Wiltfong and our guys at 24/7 was that he probably was not going to visit South Carolina as scheduled, probably would just commit to Georgia or whatever. And I think it's probably a likely scenario. They just won the national championship. This kid's from Fitzgerald, Georgia, down in South Georgia. I mean, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Georgia came in on him late. He's really good. But I don't know that necessarily that visit's been officially canceled yet. And if he gets on campus, you never know. These things have a way of being weird. But if they miss on him, which I expect them to, and then the receiver doesn't jump in and they don't get O'Neal, I firmly believe they'll hold those two spots. So, like last year, Karon Prunty jumped in the portal late, right? Mm-hmm. And they ended up getting him. Of course, he was there for one practice and then left. But there are always guys that after spring ball go, I'm out. Or like there's a new coach there and they want to go through spring to see if they jive with them and they don't, so they leave. I honestly believe that they'll hold those and see what kind of maybe low-hanging fruit they can get to this offseason, after spring to see, between spring and May 1st, who hits the portal again. So that's what I believe. So if there's no receiver and no Raekwon O'Neal, I think that you're probably looking at two placeholders there for a little while, and then we'll see what happens. And then if nobody pops up, they're still in a situation where they've got to lose some guys off the roster to get to below 85 anyway. So maybe they just hold up, or I don't know if you can count them forward anymore or what. But that's kind of the plan that I hear if they don't, get these guys left.
Yeah, I mean, as you often say, the numbers always work out. Right now, they're not working out because Carolina is somewhere in the mid 90s with their scholarship numbers, and they're gonna have to trim a lot of fat. Quite frankly, it's gonna be a hell of a diet they go on here over the next few months. And I think that number has been 98 or 99 or somewhere in there. But I think people probably would understand that there's a few guys counting towards that scholarship limit, JC, as we've talked about, that they're not with the team. So it's actually shifted back a little bit, but there is going to be attrition, I guess is what I'm getting at here. There's going to be attrition. It's going to happen moving forward. I think that somebody just jumped in the portal. Is that Colby Fields, linebacker? Just jumped in the portal as well.
Those are the types of ones that you kind of go, because Fields is a young player. He's from New Orleans, Louisiana. It was good to get a player out of there. You love his film. He needed to get bigger. He's already up to 225. Everybody talks about the linebackers. He's a fast linebacker. But is his departure going to directly impact 2022? No. And so there are going to be guys like that. I guarantee you. So Gamecock fans, you have your favorite freshman you're excited about.
Buckle up.
Yes, they'll get in the portal. I mean, and for individuals, it stings. Like it stung me a little bit when Jamar Brown got in the portal.
Yeah.
Still hadn't been just because I thought that one time he was out on the field this year against Troy, the kid made a lot of plays. Now he couldn't stay healthy most of the time at South Carolina or whatever. Like if I'm crystal ball at Miami, that he's a local kid, I'm taking that guy. But anyway, but we're gonna have guys like that we personally sit there and go, I liked him. That's just the nature of it. You can't be greedy and have everything, But do I think it'll be anyone like significant? I can't rule it out just because we've seen some crazy stuff in the portal. But the anticipation there is, the folks that leave are probably not going to be guys that, are what you would project to be in the too deep, this year. So that's and it does sound like a big number, JB, but I don't want to embarrass anybody or run down any players on the roster right now because they all work hard. I mean, it is a good group, but I've been through the roster and there's some. I'll just say there's some room for some maneuvering if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, well, I understand that. I mean, that should be expected, right? I mean, let's not all sit here and act like the Gamecocks just went out and won 10 games again for the third straight year in a row. I mean, they won 7 by virtue of a bowl game after they had won 6 total in the last 2 years. So there are players who will be replaced, and it's just the way that it is. And we just need to take that in stride and just move on, JC. I think what to another point, as we kind of get towards the end of the rope here for this class, I think if you look at the fact that South Carolina, and I'm using the 24/7 overall rankings because I don't think that it is any longer fair necessarily to only judge your class based on your recruiting class, your high school kids or your JUCO kids. I think you have to consider transfers because they are bringing in transfers. So let's consider every player that's going to be new to the program in this class. If you look at it overall, I think it's the 4th ranked transfer class in the country. I think it's the 24th ranked overall, recruiting class in the country, but 23rd ranked overall, JC. But as you pick apart those numbers, and I'm sure every school out there is going to do this with the acknowledgement in mind, as you often say, hey, look, 10 through 25, there's really not much of a difference. But with that being said, did they fill their needs or not? And did they also fill future needs? So, did they recruit a bunch of players that they're not expecting to use until 2024, 2025? And then did they also recruit a bunch of players that they're going to need in 2022 and again in 2023? So if I ask that question, basically, did they plug their holes in an organized way?
Yes.
Did they do that?
Now, look, would I feel more comfortable if they'd have gotten another receiver that was an impact guy and maybe a tight end? Like let's say they'd have gotten Michael Trigg and then one other receiver, then I think they're pretty set. I also won't, because I know I'm going to hear this from fans or whoever. Well, what about offensive line? Well, you don't solve that in recruiting. I mean, you don't, especially with the players South Carolina has returning. There's absolutely no excuse to be as bad as they were at times on the offensive line last year. I know, obviously, we know they were confused a good portion of the year. We also know there were some injuries. We also know there were some young people playing positions they hadn't played before in a new system, et cetera, et cetera. And I also know that they're going to tweak some things to try to, as they did as the season went on, to try to get those guys better. But, man, look, there's 9 guys that have started a Power 5 football game that have been there no less than 3 years heading into next season on the offensive line. Somebody, if you can't get anything out of a group like that, something's horribly wrong. Mm-hmm. And I say that because, there's a myth going around out there that, well, the offensive line really wasn't all that good in 2020. Well, that's BS. Whoever's telling you that has unrealistic expectations about offensive line play. I don't care what the numbers say. I don't care what analytics say. I don't care what anybody says. If they want to sit there and break it down, that offensive line was average to above average in 2020. And in 2019, it wasn't that bad because if you recall correctly, South Carolina lined up and ran it against Kentucky, against Florida. They got enough rushing yards to upset Georgia. They ran it against Vandy. Now, they ran into some problems at the end of the season. But, there were some times they were able to line up and run the football. Ryan Helinski, who everybody, went crazy about and early on, had the protection, So don't – these guys all individually have played better. And so there's no way to solve, offensive line with a recruiting class. There just isn't. You don't have the luxury of going in the portal unless you're Billy Napier raiding his former team. And we'll see how that works out because, karma. That you can go get 3 big-time offensive linemen, you maybe can get one, and they're trying to do that with O'Neal. Maybe, but the 3 guys they sign, they're not going to be ready this year. But that's rarely the case on the offensive line. So anyone that thought, well, why aren't they recruiting offensive linemen that can come in and play? You're not going to find that. Maybe you'll find like a Dennis Daly type as a unicorn, in recruiting. Yeah, you're not going to find a guy like that. You got to get the guys you got better, especially with the numbers like they are. And so before that criticism comes in, which I know it will, they did take care of their needs on the offensive line. They signed 3 guys. One is probably definitely a right tackle. The other 2 could be right tackle, left guard, left guard, wherever they project best. They're all 3 tough, mean guys. And then you can kind of see how the recruiting at offensive line is picking up for 2023 and then down the road in 2024. And you can kind of see it as these older guys depart that they're going to replace them with good players. And so that's it. Would I've liked to have seen them sign another safety or wide receiver? Yes. I thought they more than met their needs at the defensive backfield, which when you started putting together this class, if you're Shane Beamer and Torian Gray and those guys, you knew you needed numbers. I mean, this is a defense that plays 5 defensive backs at a time, period. Most of the snaps. And so, people were wondering about why not add another linebacker? Well, numbers. The quarterback room, you kind of got a luxury there because you got 2 really good high school guys coming in with high upside potential. They're different. But then you also got a ready-made starter for next season in Spencer Rattler, which I thought.
Can I interrupt you? I do want to Adam ask a question. It's a good question. For those that are interested in player rankings, how about the Braden Davis drop? I think he used to be a 4-star quarterback. He's dropped significantly down to a 3-star. Any idea why? Or
yeah, so what happened was he was kind of hanging on by the skin of his teeth as a and I hate to use that analogy because he missed the Under Armour game to have dental work done. Skin of his teeth. Okay. Well, as 4-star.
Yeah. Look at that. Too many analogies from JC, and it cut his internet.
He's frozen in time, huh? Sorry, Adam. We'll try to get him to come back and get that question answered for you. 1:15 on a Wednesday after. Don't go in. It's fine. JC will be right back. We'll get it fixed. But for those that are interested in that, and we are going to ask him, by the way, about Lavoisier Carroll and his commitment to South Carolina. For those that are interested, Braden Davis, formerly a 4-star quarterback, now 3-star by the 24/7 Sports Network's player rankings. South Carolina overall has a 23 national ranking as they approach the second signing day, which would basically wrap it up for this 2022 class and then move us forward into 2023. I also will throw this out there. There is still an unnamed welcome home from Shane Beamer from a few days ago, which we will continue to monitor over the next couple of weeks. But I would say if you don't know who it is by early next week, then you could probably start to figure out a little bit more information, what class and stuff like that. If you're one of those people who really likes to dig into it, try to figure out who it is and what player is coming and this, that, and the other. So, but that information is still floating around out there as well. And that young man has not made his destination known just yet publicly. All right, 1:16 here on this Wednesday afternoon. It is hump day as Darren works to get him back, JC, back here in our program. You got him in there?
I don't. It wouldn't shock me. He hasn't texted either. Wouldn't shock me if he just lost his internet. He already said it's like 8 degrees in Chicago. So it
might have frozen over.
Things have gone wrong.
Yeah, as we work on that, we're going to hit a quick timeout. We will plan to have him back for another 10 minutes or so. So everybody hang tight. The JB and Goldwater Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice. We'll be right back. Right here in our backyard is Motley Rice LLC, a law firm that hasn't lost its Carolina roots. The Motley Rice team fights every day for South Carolinians who were injured while traveling by plane or bus, harmed by medical drugs and devices, or burdened by dangerous auto recalls, including Takata airbags. Motley Rice is headquartered in Mount Pleasant at 28 Bridgeside Boulevard. We are honored to have Motley Rice as a sponsor for the JB and Goldwater Show and the Big Gamecock Preview Show.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
People don't like to get stuck in traffic, stuck in the mud, stuck at work, and to others you probably don't think much about, stuck with a big medical bill or stuck with a healthcare program that doesn't fit who you are. Experience true medical freedom with Share Healthcare. More affordable, more options, user-friendly, and biblically sound. You can join right now. Explore a new way to show you care with Share Healthcare. Join us today at sharehealthcare.com. sharehealthcare.com.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help?
You are listening to the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
That was weird.
All right.
Sorry about that.
There we go. I just sent Jamie a message. I was like, no JC. And then bang, there's JC.
I shouldn't have a monologue at while I'm staring at another page because I was looking at the commit list trying to kind of figure out some things. But yeah, sorry about that, guys. But anyway, that's just kind of what happened. ESPN dropped him, I think, slightly. And so with the algorithm, you're kind of at the mercy of that. And my guess is that drop over there was probably more because other people moved up that they had seen at these all-star games. And, that happens too. So I don't think it changes what kind of player Braden Davis is one bit. I think he sort of just is what he is. I'd probably have had him, if I were ranking him, a low 4-star, kind of like Tanner Bailey. Probably those guys, I'd have ranked him about the same. So that's my deal there.
Yeah, I did see the other day somebody posted a photo of Tanner Bailey's Instagram, asked him why he wanted to be at Carolina, and he said, "Sat." So obviously he's excited to work with South Carolina offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield. All right,
I'll add this to that. I mean, I don't think there's any question that talking about offense and quarterback play and concepts. I don't think there's any question it's very attractive to quarterbacks, coaches, whatever you want to, or head coaches. I would say that whoever you want to talk about. I think Marcus Satterfield is very gifted at that, and so I'm not surprised Tanner Bailey said that.
All right, JC, we haven't spoken with you on the air. I know we've only got 7 or 8 minutes left with you here, so want to ask you about Lavassier Carroll and his commitment. He was the first welcome home that Shane tweeted about last week. He will add even more depth back into the running back room, a young man who had previously committed to the Gamecocks back in, I think it was 2019, before Marshawn Lloyd pulled the trigger, and then ended up at Georgia. We all know the story. Ended up in the secondary, but he's going to, quote, come home, where he's got a girlfriend in school. He's got some family in the Columbia area. So what type of impact do you think? He's already in school. He will go through spring practice for those that didn't know that. What type of impact will he have in the near future for Carolina football?
I'm not ruling him out, for this year. And I know he spent last year at corner. Like Hale disagrees with me. Hale kind of thinks, well, I may need a year to get back going, and they have other running backs, and they do. I just think that guy's really fast, and I think he's probably going to help right away on special teams, probably maybe in the return game a little bit. He's a legit 4'5" guy at 6 foot, 195 pounds out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can get him to 205, 210 this offseason. And I think he can play. I mean, the great thing about running back is, at South Carolina right now, again, this year is the cream's going to rise to the top. The top guy is going to play. There's going to be competition. And I think he fits right in with that. The other good news about him is he's got 4 years left. So if he is just kind of a role player next year, you look at who you may lose, and you have a very talented guy that can step right in. And I'll say this right now. Everybody was a little upset for whatever reason about Ramon Brown going to Maryland and all that. I'll say this right now. Jalen Glover going to Utah. I'll say this right now. South Carolina got the better of all three of those.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I mean, Jalen Glover's a 5'7" guy going to Utah. There's probably stories written about guys like that end up overachieving. So I think he'll be pretty good. Ramon Brown, to me, a lot of folks that I talked to were like, yeah, he's good, but, he's not special. He's just been a guy that's been ranked high that has a lot of offers, which sometimes those guys are really good. Sometimes they're not. Lavassier Carroll, to me, is an elite SEC level athlete, running back, whatever you want to call it. And kind of like Zaquandre White, who They tried to move to defense at Florida State, and he ended up having to go to JUCO or whatever. With Carroll and the portal, he could come straight to South Carolina. And obviously, there's a lot of reasons why he wanted to be at South Carolina. I guess, they were the first school he committed to. He's from I think the county in Georgia he lives in is right across the border. So it's kind of relatively close too. So, and it just made sense. But there's a reason the kid committed early to the Gamecocks. And there's a reason that once he decided to leave University of Georgia, that Carolina was able to scoop him up. And I think that's just absolutely huge. And, one of the great things about the portal guys is that, everybody's freaking out. You didn't sign the incoming high school guy, but you got somebody just as good that doesn't screw up your roster balance. You're not going and signing 2 senior running backs. You got a freshman basically, and then an older guy to kind of balance things out. So I think it's a tremendous pickup. I'd be lying if I told you I hadn't been sitting on that information since the 1st of December, but kind of not a well-kept secret. But, adding another athlete like that with a ton of eligibility left, man, that just helps this program. And that's just something, guys, that, at the volume that it's happening now, it had not been happening. And we can speculate, what if Muschamp had the portal all we want? And that's fine. It may have been a different story with his tenure had he had it at Florida and South Carolina both. But, man, oh, man, this is the additions and the volume of additions combined with the returning players. It just sets that roster up next year. It's just different. It's different than it has been. Now, does that mean more wins? No. I mean, I think that if you look back in time, the 09, 7-6, 08 was 7-6. I don't think anybody in their right mind would argue that the 09 Gamecocks weren't dramatically better than the 08 Gamecocks, but same record because other teams are out there playing as well.
Right.
But man, the Carroll thing is just kind of the I was going to say the nuts on the Sunday. How about the whipped cream on the Sunday, right? Because it's just another guy. Yeah, it's a tough day. It's just another good athlete. People are always talking about how, South Carolina's got athletes, but they don't have enough. You need depth and all that good stuff. Well, you kind of start looking around. You go, my goodness, there's some depth here. And, there's some players that can play. And, the other thing people kind of misinterpret is that they think transfer portal, they think you're going and loading up on like JUCOs with 2 years left or grad transfers with a year left. No. And like I said earlier, it's not true. You got
Carroll's a freshman.
Yeah, it's just like there's no difference between getting Ramon Brown and Lavoisier Carroll, except Lavoisier Carroll's a lot better. I mean, there's really no difference in terms of how it impacts your future. So, same thing with a lot of these other guys. So,
how do you think this class would be? Shoot, we're short on time. How do you think all this would be viewed? I mean, everybody's very optimistic, very excited right now. How do you think people would feel if everything was the same except Spencer Rattler had not committed?
There'd still be some concern.
I agree.
But because I'll tell you why. Because, and look, I could write a book about the toxic relationship that this fan base has with quarterbacks since, after Dylan Thompson left. I mean, just awful treatment. You just to all of them, every one of them, except Ryan Helinski, who didn't do what he was supposed to do.
Right.
The one guy that didn't, everybody seemed to love. But it's tough. And I think because Jason Brown probably would not have left. And so then you're setting up this battle between Luke Doty, Jason Brown, Colton Gauthier. There's some people that would probably think Tanner Bailey could come in and win the job or whatever. And I think that type of instability at the position kind of works against you at times. There's nothing wrong with competition, but, I think the best thing for Luke Doty, because he's had such a tumultuous 2 years. You had the COVID situation where it wasn't a normal deal anyway. Moved to receiver for a couple of weeks, back to quarterback, thrown to the fire. This year he breaks his foot. He goes out, tries to play on it. You could see it all unraveling against Vandy, okay, when he re-injured his foot. Settle down, get in a groove, calm, take a deep breath, develop. And if something happens to Rattler next year, I think Luke Doty will go in and perform well, provided he's the number 2 guy. Same with Colton. I think what Rattler gives you is just a breath of fresh air in terms of, okay, that's very, very likely going to be the starting quarterback. He can throw the ball. He can make all the throws. He's kind of a celebrity, you know. I mean, because everybody knows who Spencer Rattler is. He's on the Heisman list. It's big for the program. So I do think that there would be a little bit less enthusiasm. But I mean, we all watched pro football last weekend, didn't we, guys? I mean,
no.
What is that weekend without Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Tom Brady, and Matt Stafford? I mean, what is that weekend without that? It's that important in this game, that position.
Shout out to my in-laws, Josh Allen. He's a cowboy.
Wyoming on a steel horse, he rides. But anyway,
I remember when I was out there a few years ago, seeing all his locker, seeing all the stuff, the tour that I had. Buddy of mine used to be a coach on staff, and it's when they had started the hashtag and some new branding. The world needs more cowboys. You do realize Wyoming Cowboys, right? And then here came all the freak groups. Oh, that's sexist. Oh my God, it needs to be cowgirls. Like,
no.
Well, we're promoting our brand, which were the Cowboys. Yeah, it was Wyoming. Literally, people were it was all over the place. They literally told them to all go screw themselves, and they all shut up and never came back and protested again. It was pretty beautiful.
Yeah, I don't think Wyoming is a place you need to go spread that kind of stuff.
It doesn't work that way out there, pal.
It's just like, no.
They're going to tell you how it's going to be. You're not going to tell them. It's a lot different. There's no doubt about that. JC, I know you got to go. Bundle up and -8 degrees. Yeah. Speaking of Wyoming, that's about how it is out there. So we'll see what it all looks like, and then we'll be able to discuss it next week. And I know we're keeping maybe an eye on one more running back, the preferred walk-on, the young man from Columbia University.
But yeah, I did want to mention him.
He's a quick little booger. Holy moly!
Fast player, really. I mean, timed legit 4.34.
Whoa.
They say 4.2. I'm never going to say 4.2 though, guys. Nobody runs 4.2. CJ Spiller.
Troy Williamson did. His feet never hit the ground.
That dude was fast. But I remember Clemson used to release Jacoby Ford and CJ Spiller's 40 times. 4.08.
Oh, God.
4.12. And I'm like,
can't even drive that fast.
Those guys are fast. No, get it. But, geez, come on, man. But really good vision as a running back.
How would he help? Just out of curiosity. Like, he's not going to be an every down guy. I think we all realize. Is he a slot guy? What do you do with him?
I think he's a Juju McDowell if Juju gets hurt, or an insurance policy, right? For a Juju type guy. I don't, the plan is not to bring him in and play him at slot receiver. He's going to be a running back, but man, I think in this offense, I'm gonna back up. Here's what I hope. I hope in this offense that they find more quality guys to do reverses with, jet sweeps, things like that, some misdirection, and add that wrinkle. They tried to do it some last year, and by God, unless it was Jaheim Bell, I thought they had the wrong players running it. I think that's a Juju job. I think that's a Miller job. I think it's an Amari Brown job, a Jaheim Bell job. Guys would get probably Wells too on the Josh Van sweep. Guys with get up and go. And this is just another guy that's fast, return game, special teams. He's from Rockingham, North Carolina, home of one Melvin Ingram.
All right.
So
Rockingham.
He's a guy kind of knows the Gamecocks, and it's it's just another fast guy. And look, I always tell everybody about the 2011 season. Tragically, Marcus Lattimore gets hurt. I think 2 other guys were hurt. So at the end of the year in 2011, I think the Gamecocks were playing with Brandon Wilds as the starter, and then Kenny Miles came in sometime after he kind of got off of injury and healthy by the end of the year. So you can go from 5 running backs to 2 really quick. Alabama had that happen this year in this league. So if you can get a guy like that in, the more the merrier. And my understanding is that's probably his intention on Friday is to announce for South Carolina. So you always have a need for speed, and if a guy can run, you can find a spot for him just about anywhere. But to answer your question, he is going to be with Hardesty's group, the running backs, when spring practice starts. No, I'm sorry, not spring practice, fall practice. He's graduating from Columbia in May. So he's sticking around for that Ivy League degree, which I don't blame him. And then heading on down to South Carolina in the summer. My bad on that. I misspoke.
Okay. There you go. Little Top Gun reference before you got off the air. The need for speed.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to.
Hey, when are they releasing the new Top Gun?
That's what I was about to say. It's like Tom Cruise is going to be 80 years old by the time they get around to releasing.
This thing was supposed to be released in the summer of 2020. It's 2022.
Memorial Day, I think.
Yeah,
Memorial Day.
Yeah. Oh, dude, you haven't seen it. You got to go watch the trailer, Darren, on YouTube.
I've watched it many times.
Oh,
like,
it'll give you the goosebumps.
Favorite movie growing up. Yeah, favorite movie growing up.
All right. Oh, it'll fire you up in a hurry, man.
Freaking Ed Harris is in it too, man.
Yeah.
Did you notice that? Like, remember they had the bald guy, the first one that wasn't Ed Harris. He was like the principal from Back to the Future. McFly, you know, that guy. Yeah. Rubber dog poop out of Hong Kong. He'll be flying cargo planes full of rubber dog poop out of Hong Kong, you know. And then they upgraded with this one. They're like, well, we're going with Ed Harris. You know, because that other guy's gotten old. I think he's in cartoons or something. But Ed Harris is a scary dude sometimes.
Dude,
so
that guy's
like that.
That guy's awesome.
Yeah, he is awesome.
Yeah,
Ed Harris is in the Truman Show, man. Ed Harris was just, we love you, Truman. Please come back. And then he's like, I don't know, man. We could talk about Ed Harris during the summer when this movie comes out finally.
Yeah, July is always such a beautiful month. June, July. Yeah,
I need. Yeah, thanks for reminding me. Since you know it's.
Yeah, I'm fired up. I'm still fired up for this Top Gun. They need to figure this out. And by the way, guess what? You're not gonna believe this. Another Halloween is coming out in October. Halloween ends, so maybe this is it. They're filming it right now down in Savannah. I just saw.
Yeah, saw it. Jamie Lee Curtis, who looks like my lovely mother when my mother was younger, and. So Jamie Lee Curtis used to do this yogurt commercial about her taking a poop. Okay. So every time I see Jamie Lee Curtis, I think of my mom taking a poop, and it's just disgusting. And some people think she's a sex symbol. Remember her in Trading Places?
And
she was the hooker with a heart of gold. I can't even think about that because all I think about is my mom. That's awful. It's demented.
Never mind.
I just don't. Yeah, I just can't. I can't deal with Jamie Lee Curtis a whole lot these days. But you know, now she's gotten older. She looks different than my mom now. So maybe. And I did like the last Halloween.
You bookended this appearance today very, very well.
I know. And
you and your cock chopper and your Sunday nuts and your mom.
Yeah, dude, that's just kind of I'm a little off today, but anyway. Okay. And you guys did notice the Spartanburg shirt?
Shout out to the Sparkle City. I see it
representing the hometown strong. So
we mentioned what did we mention yesterday, Darren? Somewhere up in Cherokee County, not too far from Spartanburg.
Gaffney, Cowpens, Blacksburg.
Blacksburg. Yeah, we're talking about Blacksburg. Okay. Blacksburg, beautiful Blacksburg, South Carolina.
Talking about like the couple store there off exit 1?
No. No.
I think it's called Adam and Eve's or something. I don't know.
No, we were referencing the 2022 South Carolina Athletics Hall of Fame class because Judy Wilkins Rose is from Blacksburg, South Carolina. Yes. So. No, nothing pornographic, you pervert. And he's frozen again. Look at that. What a freeze of a photo. That is fantastic.
Look at that. I don't even want to take it off the screen.
Can anybody, how do you screenshot that?
No, he's gone.
Oh, God, I hope somebody caught it. That was really, really good.
Oh, well, you can always go back in the show and go watch it over again, and it'll be there.
That was unbelievable. 1:39 on a Wednesday afternoon. How can I help JC? I Help Consulting can.
He needs more than I Help Consulting. They can start though.
Maybe Daniel can at least send him with all the businesses that he helps. He's got to know somebody who can personally help him. ihelpconsulting.com. The owner is Daniel Owens. He is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person who does so much for so many people. ihelpconsulting.com. You got to ask yourself that question. How can I help you save money, credit card processing fees, fees or the amount of the dollar amount that you're paying out for insurance for your employees. Could be something as simple as the internet. What are you paying for your phone, your light bill? I mean, let a look at all of it. I'm telling you, there is always a way to find savings at iHelp Consulting. You would be shocked. It is a free consult. Free, F-R-E-E, free. If they find the savings, then you will pay a percentage of those savings to iHelp Consulting. iHelpConsulting.com. Just do yourself a favor. Go to iHelpConsulting.com whenever you have a chance. You'll be happy that you did, especially if you're a business owner or you know somebody that is. I want to go back to something that he said, though, Darren, about I asked that question, and we really didn't get to finish it probably as much as I would have wanted to, about, this is a good class for Carolina. It is a class that, I believe the same thing that JC does, and our friends in other necks of the woods that cover recruiting and things like that, the boys over at Gamecock Central and guys like that, I think they all feel pretty good about it as well, because they have been able to plug a lot of holes. But just from a public perception, even privately, how would you actually view it if Spencer Rattler wasn't, not even if you didn't have him in the class, but if he wasn't the quarterback, or if a quarterback of his stature wasn't the guy, right? Okay, so if you took another QB, I don't know, a lower level G5 type guy, an FCS type guy, something like that. They took Jason Brown last year, and I think that there was some optimism there, and he obviously had some really good moments down the stretch. But when he signed, Darren, and we were in the middle of it, I mean, there wasn't some overwhelming response to Jason Brown committing and signing with the Gamecocks. There was, okay, they signed a guy who's capable, and at the time, everybody was more impressed with the wide receiver who was coming with him. Had to be his best friend, EJ Jenkins, who's still on the roster. And so that's why I asked that question, because I do think it largely would be looked at much different. Not much different.
He said the biggest thing he said in there is Rattler's a celebrity. He is. He's a national celebrity. He had all of college football focused on him at the beginning of last year, the year prior to that, with what happened during this year, and then as one of the top names in the transfer portal. And then you couple that with, oh my God, this celebrity just went to Columbia? That doesn't happen. Right. That's the perception. So my view of it would be drastically different, because I understand there's talent coming in, both transfers and recruits. I get that. But you know how I look at all this. It's a very wait and see thing. What Spencer Rattler did is he changed the national perception of South Carolina. The perception was already good. Shane Beamer has exceeded expectations. Shane Beamer did well in year one, and he's moving the Gamecocks in the right direction. Then it was bang, here's proof, and then a windfall that followed that. I don't know how many guys follow if Rattler doesn't sign up too, because there's an appeal to a program suddenly out of nowhere when this happens, and it's a national brand when it wasn't a national brand before. So it changed everything.
These are the things, if you're Coach Tanner, when you made this hire, you obviously knew that Shane was a hell of a recruiter, and you knew that he would hire guys that can recruit and all that stuff. We know about all that, but I don't know that you could have envisioned it going this well in your first real offseason as the head coach. I mean, last year, Shane, at this point in time last year, they weren't full throttle with trying to sign players at all. I mean, he was full throttle trying to fill out a staff, trying to keep a staff, trying to figure out who in his locker room was staying, what trainer was he going to hire? Who's the nutritionist going to be? What paint colors are they going to use on the practice field? A bunch of crap that nobody wants to deal with, but he had to deal with all of it. And now it's the first full year, and look what he's done. I'll say this, though. I think JC, I don't know that he mean to omit this name, but if Spencer Rattler wasn't in this class, I think the large majority of the conversation pertaining to the football team that's on campus, okay, not the kids coming in, would absolutely be around Dakereon Joyner needs to be our starting quarterback. There's no question. I mean, for instance, let me give you a brief example. and this is all a hypothetical conversation. It's just a what if Rattler wasn't here, right? But we watched Jason Brown throw about 8 passes in a spring game, and everybody thought, "Oh, that's it. He's the guy. He's the guy." Period. Shut the back door. Shut the front door. Luke Doty said, "No, none of you. It's Jason Brown." Okay, and he wasn't ready. And I know what happened at the end of the year. He came in and was a hell of a football player. Had a great spark, but it wasn't him for a long time. And they had to figure it out. And now you just saw 4 quarters of Dakereon Joyner, Darren. So you can only imagine if Spencer Rattler wasn't the quarterback, the storyline quarterback, regardless of whether Jason Brown was still on the roster and what he had already accomplished, regardless of Luke Doty is here, Colton Gauthier, whoever, doesn't matter. Everybody would have seen Dakereon Joyner play 4 quarters, not throw an incomplete pass, and make that offense move like a well-oiled machine. And they would if Dakereon Joyner doesn't start this year, that's it. I'm turning in my tickets, and we got to fire Satterfield. We got to do this. But all that's quieted down, even with the performance of Joyner, because of Spencer Rattler.
You nailed it. The fan base would have gone head over heels, and that would have been a big problem, because he isn't. If he was the guy, it had happened already. He was the guy in an emergency situation, and the game plan worked, and everything worked. He's not the guy. We know that. We don't need to go rehash that, but that would have been the conversation. And then there still would have been this underswell of, I mean, we talked about Marcus Satterfield every single day for 12 years. It felt like when it wasn't even relevant, it was circling, but now we're not. And I understand there's still an undercurrent of what's really going to happen there. I get that, but it's not dominating the conversation. No. So while it was
players
great, say that again.
The players are dominating the conversation, which is the way it should be.
Right. And so on the national scale, it's now we're a name brand. It's a great deal. Closer to home, it quieted the racket. It quieted a lot of the nonsense going on behind the scenes, the negativity behind the scenes. I don't know how Spencer Rattler is going to play. I don't know how the whole thing's going to fit. But I know that it won the offseason in many, 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 many ways. And that's a good thing. And I don't know how it impacted the rest of the class. I have to believe it did, because it became a cooler place to go.
I agree. You're gonna play. I mean, Spencer Rattler, as long as he stays healthy, he's going to the NFL. I mean, he's going to get a crack at it. He's got the talent. I agree with you. As far as Joyner goes, like I watching him do what he did, I don't really want to go down the road of, well, North Carolina's terrible defense, and or they nobody was expecting that, or whatever the case is. I always say look for the why, ask for, you got to find the why to figure out the what and this and the other. But from just a talent standpoint, just a kind of moving the needle type standpoint, I do think that Dakereon Joyner did plenty to stay in that quarterback room. Like I do think he deserves a fair shake in spring practice if they can figure out a way to kind of work some dual roles for him. I don't know that he is going to end up being one of the best 3 or 4 wide receivers on the team, Darren. At this point in time, I don't necessarily believe that, but then again, I don't know. But how do you get him involved? Because we did see what he can do when he's involved. He is good. I mean, he can evade. He's good in space. He can evade guys. So would he be a change of pace as a second string quarterback? You always have to plan for the worst. That's your job as a head coach. So if God forbid something happened to Spencer Rattler, where are you going? And so I think that there's a lot there for him. I don't think it's fair to shut the door on this young man as still playing quarterback in South Carolina. I'm not saying as the starting quarterback, but continuing to play quarterback, and let's see what he can do in that role. But then also finding other roles for him, as JC mentioned earlier, some of this other goofy stuff that's kind of worked its way into the game that's just not traditional.
Yeah. He's not the starting guy.
No.
We know that. Has he done enough to add depth to the quarterback room? Yeah, sure. He could add depth there. I don't know if he'll be number 2 or number 3 either. I mean, it's hard to tell that now how everything go. It's been a while since he's really focused on that position, focused on it, worked on it, and then had a chance to compete there, which the fact that it's been a while isn't going to help him either. But can he add depth there? Yeah, I'm not shutting the door on him, but it would have been a big problem if, like you just laid out that scenario. It's a very likely scenario that had this not happened, it'd have been, all right, we got some young guys coming in, but look at what DK just did. And maybe that should be the guy. It would have been unrealistic expectations from there tied into, and oh God, what about this offense? The whole Rattler thing changed the narrative. It changed the mood. It changed the whole room.
I wonder what he's doing right now. By the way, everybody, we'll speak with Pat DeMarco tomorrow at 12:30 in our second segment of Talking Ball with the Gamecocks, Pat DeMarco. And, I'll make it a point to bring DeCarrion into the conversation with him as well. I'm not sure exactly how much PD is going to, pump out to us publicly about, what they're doing with him and things like that. But, I mean, I'd be interested to know. I mean, it's not like, we're not stupid, right? We all understand how college athletics works. It's not like they're like, all right, boys, y'all play up your video games and eat all the junk you want to. We'll see you in spring practice in March. No. This is a very important time. Like, they're working out. They're in there every morning with their trainers and with coach and those guys. This everywhere, all across the country. And players have gotten specific word on things that they need to worry about and work on their own time. So has DeCarrion Joyner been given the bug of you need to throw. You need to throw with the quarterbacks. You need to get out there and do it as much as you can every week. Get out there on your own wide receivers. Go out and run routes and this, that, and the other. I'd be interested to know what he is doing to prepare himself for the spring and then obviously for next year as a football player and where that is.
I think it'd be an interesting, at least, answer to get to see what he would tell you. I think what you'll hear, he's, trying to be the best football player he can be. That's going to be the answer. I think they'll tiptoe around it and keep it very generic as it has been, right? He's trying to be the best football player he can be. He's going to help us however he can help us. And I think that's the double-edged sword that DeCarrion is. He's such a good athlete that you can dance your way around that and say he can help us in a lot of different ways. We're going to figure out the best way that he can help us, but at the same time, that doesn't focus in on one area. And it's that double-edged sword that Joyner's been ever since he got to Columbia.
I agree. It'll be fascinating to watch as we come down the stretch. Final few minutes here on the JB and Goldwater Show. Anything you want to chime in with, do it in the Share Healthcare chat lines tonight in college basketball. I do want to mention this. This is a huge game in the state, and nobody's spoken much about it thus far. But Winthrop and South Carolina Upstate will play tonight. USC Upstate is only 8-10 on the season. Winthrop just 12-7. We all know in the Big South, you got to win the league to get into the postseason. Unless something really strange happens, but you're gonna have to this year you're gonna have to win the league. Longwood leads the North at 5-0, but in the South they're tied at 5-1 in league play. Again, USC Upstate just 8-10 on the season, but 5 of those 8 wins have come in league play. So whoever wins that game tonight is going to be in sole possession of first place in the South.
I believe I'm double checking this right now. I believe it's the best Division I year that Upstate has had.
Yeah,
I'm trying to figure out exactly the note that I saw on it, but it is it's among the best seasons they've had, potentially the best conference season they've had since they've been a Division I team.
Okay, yeah, I mean this is congratulations to them. Hey, Frank Martin spoke on USC Upstate earlier in the year and mentioned. How well he knows their head coach. His son obviously played there before transferring to the Gamecocks and things like that, and thought they were on the up and up. And seemingly they've got it going here in the in January. So certainly want to keep an eye on that nationally. An off the radar game to many in our neck of the woods, but it's an important one nationally. 17th ranked Providence is at 21st ranked Xavier tonight on the CBS Sports Network at 6:30. How about the Florida Gators? They're up at Tennessee tonight on ESPN2, Tom Bowling Arena, where the Vols are 9.5-point favorites there. Gators, if they can win, they'll get to 4-4 in the league. If Tennessee wins, they'll drop to 4-4. And then, of course, staying in the SEC takes us to South Carolina and Vanderbilt on ESPNU at 7 o'clock. Gamecocks just 1.5-point favorites against Vandy inside of Colonial Life Arena tonight. And if they can win it, it'll be their third win in the league. If they drop it, they'll fall to 2-5. Very similar resumes for Vanderbilt and South Carolina right now. The one glaring difference is Gamecocks beat the Doors. So they are 11-7, and 2 of those 4 wins, one of them coming against Vanderbilt. Vandy 10-8, 2-4. And I'll stand by what we've talked about, Darren, for the last week on this game because it's part of this quick little 2-game stretch for the Gamecocks. It is absolutely a must-win. I mean, if they lose the game, it's it probably ain't going to be pretty. It's a quad 3 opportunity tonight. That is not the story. The story is what follows it. 4 quad 1 chances for Carolina. It's great. It's also 4 quad 1 chances for losses. And this is, Darren, looking at the schedule, after trips to A&M, Mississippi State, and then home contests against Tennessee and Kentucky, then you got to go to Georgia and Ole Miss. Those are your next 2 real chances to be favored or expected maybe to win games. They will not be expected to win any of the following 4 games after tonight. They're going to have to pull an upset or 2.
Oh, yeah.
So this one is brutally important if they can get it and get 1 win shy of being at 500. It's going to be Jermaine Couisnard and Keyshawn Bryant need to come on like they did in the second half of the Georgia game.
I think they're going to win the game. And looking at some of the numbers from the first game today, I tweeted this out earlier, and a couple things jumped out at me. We know the Gamecocks have issues turning the ball over. They beat Vanderbilt despite their second highest turnover percentage of the season in that game. They turned it over almost 30% of the time. The other thing they did, they shot the ball well inside the arc. They hit about 70% of their shots inside the arc, which is one of their best performances of the year. They offset those turnovers by actually taking and hitting good shots. The tempo defensively, they're two similar style of teams. And South Carolina turned over Vanderbilt in that first game as well, along the lines of the highest turnover rate that they have forced throughout the year too. If they can do those things again, right? If you can shoot your 2s well, and I think they're going to at least take better shots following up on the win over Georgia, and the fact that it's a must-win game. Also, don't let Vanderbilt go to the line 40 times. I think it was like 38 times in that first game. That can tip the scales as well. And
terrible.
Those numbers jumped out to me. The fact they still turned it over and still found a way to win the game. Vanderbilt's lost 4 of their last 5. I think South Carolina wins this game.
Yeah, well, I hope they do. I mean, if they do, again, they'll be at 3-4. Carolina fans, you want to see some of the teams in front of you start to kind of muscle your way down a little bit. And that Florida-Tennessee game tonight, probably going to hope for a Vols victory there, because that would drop Florida to 3-5 by percentages. They'd be behind the Gamecocks, but it would, if Carolina can win, it would give the Gators 1 more loss. So you want to, if you're playing the numbers game for the Gamecocks, you got to play it for everybody else in the league with what you're surrounded by. And so you got to start trying to count wins and then count losses on the other side to see where you'll be able to match up at the end of the year. But I got a feeling it's going to be tight tonight. Let's all remember now, Vanderbilt, they have 2 SEC wins on the season, but they were pretty close against Tennessee just a couple of games ago. 68-60, the final score there. Their 2 wins, Georgia and at Arkansas, to open SEC play for the Commodores.
Arkansas they're a weird team. And Vanderbilt just got smashed by Tennessee. They're not playing well. Gamecocks limited Pippen. He only took 11 shots. He got to the line a bunch, but the whole team did. They have the formula to knock off Vanderbilt again.
Yep. We'll see if they do tonight. Thanks to J.C. Shurburtt for joining us today. Tomorrow, Pat DeMarco at 12:30. Can't wait for that. And then boys and girls at 1 o'clock, we'll be joined for a long, long time, maybe the entire hour, by our friend David Shelton, the Post and Courier. David has recently lost his son to a heroin overdose, and he is prepared to come on our program tomorrow and tell that story. We will maybe mix in some sports with him as well. He wants to do that, but he's going to tell a story that we all need to hear, and it will be tomorrow at 1 o'clock. It's going to be a special day, and I hope all of you will be here for that. For Darren Goldwater, thanks to all of you. Have a wonderful Wednesday afternoon. Maybe some snow back in the forecast this weekend, South Carolina. Heads up. Pay attention to your local meteorologist. We'll see you tomorrow at noon on the JB and Goldwater Show, presented by Motley Rice.